8 years, and then this year it'll be 9 years since in December when the economic collapse.
Could you scoot in just a little bit, and then we're going to test the mic. I
Okay,
apologize. We
Yeah,
are
yeah,
actually
it's coming up.
live, but I'm testing it live.
Testing.
Okay, go ahead and try. Is it on?
Says it's on.
Okay, try it again.
Testing.
Can you?
That's all I've got, sorry
I'm
guys.
looking.
I gotta catch up. It says you're live. I have volume.
You have good volume? Is the mic worth it? I apologize. We are actually live, but I'm testing it live.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
should we pass the microphone back and forth? Is that what?
Or you can hold it in the middle,
We can hold
whichever.
it in the middle.
Okay.
John, this is the part where I'll be able to cut it out later and edit it. So go ahead and start with your introduction.
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm Captain Alexander with the U.S. Militia, and also here on behalf of Redoubt News to help cover some of the media here. And so I appreciate you coming out today, Michael.
Thank you.
So today in this interview, I've got some topics I like to cover, and we'll kind of cover several different areas on this topic. So
Can we give him about 5 minutes to introduce himself?
And that's what I was getting ready to do here.
Awesome.
So, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and introduce yourself,
Sure.
if you don't mind, and also state your qualifications for U.S. Congress.
Sure, absolutely. Sure, my name is Michael Snyder. I'm running for Congress in Idaho's 1st Congressional District. And my wife and I, we live up in Bonners Ferry, which is, the last town you hit really before you get to Canada. People know us for that. But my wife and I have been up there the last 7 years and loving life up there, having a great time. And I'm most known for my work on the Economic Collapse blog, which was started late 2009. And then I've got other websites too, themostimportantnews.com, endoftheamericandream.com, where our websites over the last 7 years been a big part of the alternative media. And they've been viewed more than 100 million times over the last 7 years, where I've been writing about the problems we're facing in this country, how we're getting away from the Constitution, and so many things that the people that are concerned about, that the alternative media is writing about, that the mainstream media is not addressing. So in addition to our websites, of course, my articles are syndicated nationally, where they're republished on dozens of conservative and Christian websites all over the country. Some of the biggest conservative and Christian websites around, including if you ever go to the Drudge Report, you've probably clicked on some of my articles. And of course, Infowars.com, they've been featured on Steve Quayle, regularly featured on Zero Hedge, Charisma News, and the list goes on and on and on and on, where they're actually read far more than on our websites. So it's always amazed my wife and I, the impact that we can have on the world from little Bonners Ferry, where we literally get emails from people all over the planet that our work touches for conservative causes, for Christian causes, people that just want the truth. And so, and then that work has opened the door for other things, where I'm the author of 4 books. I've been a regular guest on radio and television all over the nation. I've been able to do traveling around the country. And so when people look in this race and they see people who've come more through the traditional path toward a seat in the United States Congress, well, I'm more in the tradition of a Heather Scott, who came on the scene in 2014, had never been involved in the traditional political sphere, totally green to the process, but she came in and now she's doing an amazing job in the state legislature. We've sat down with her several times, had wonderful conversations with Heather Scott, big supporter of Heather Scott, doing an amazing job, but she came in without that experience. Or in 2016, Donald Trump came along, didn't have the traditional political experience, but he came along and electrified America with a message that resonated with all of us, and won the presidency, and I'm so thankful that he did. So now I'm coming along in 2018, and I don't have maybe the traditional experience that some other of the candidates have, but then if you look at my experience that I do have, I've touched more people for conservative and Christian causes over the last 7 years than every other candidate in this race combined. And so I'll stack my experience up against anyone else in this race every day of the week. And I'm very proud of the work we've done over the last 7 years. And now we want to take that same intensity to Congress, because in this race, we've got some professional politicians, we've got some people who do things that kind of in the way that politicians do them. But I would argue now's not a time for politics as usual. I would argue that we need to send a fighter to Washington, and I've been fighting the last 7 years. People who know my work know who I am and how hard I fight, and the exact same style that I've had for the last 7 years, I'm going to take to Washington. I'm not going to Washington to be a cog in the system. Some of my opponents, they say, well, I want to go to Washington, I want to work within the system to be effective, to make things a little bit better for people here in Idaho. Well, I have a totally different approach. I'm not going there to be part of the system. I'm going there to turn the system upside down and get back to this. This is a copy of the US Constitution. And for decades, we've been getting away from this. What we have in Washington, D.C. today doesn't look anything like this. And we got to 2016, it was Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, and already our constitutional republic was hanging by a thread. And I go around, as I'm going around the 1st Congressional District, I'm asking people, I'm saying, what do you think would have happened if Hillary Clinton would have won? And what I hear over and over again is people say to me, Michael, if Hillary Clinton would have won, it would have been over. We would have been finished. Now, what they mean by that is not necessarily that the United States of America would have ceased to exist, but what they were saying is, we might not have ever gotten back to this. That might have been it. We may not have ever had a chance to recover our constitutional republic. And so Donald Trump won, and does that mean that America has been saved? No, but it means maybe we have a chance, an opportunity to save America. But what we do next is what matters. And so if we just continue with politics as usual, and right now the Republican Congress is totally fumbling the ball, we need people, we don't need people to go there and do things the way they're done right now. We need emergency surgery for our country. We need people that are stand up to the leadership of both parties and say, no more, we're not going to do it that way any longer. We're going to get back to this. We're going to get back to the US Constitution. We're going to get back to the way it's supposed to be, because if we don't, if we miss this window of opportunity, we may never have this kind of opportunity again.
So you brought up a good point here, and I'd like to get to this subject. Okay, how do you feel Donald Trump currently today is doing?
Right. Well, we are a pro-Trump campaign. In fact, the signs that are going up all over the district proudly say pro-Trump right at the top. Or if you look at the new version of our brochure, it says it right there on the brochure, we're the pro-Trump candidate. And if you go to our website, michaelsnyderforcongress.com, and you take a look at our website, you're greeted by a pro-Trump message.
Do you feel Donald Trump is upholding the Constitution?
We think that Donald Trump has implemented a very conservative agenda, and he set forth a conservative agenda while he was running that we resonated with the American people. Now, there have been some concerns, certainly with the Second Amendment. Okay. And I know, you're likely concerned. We're concerned when he made some statements about the Second Amendment. So, what we want to do we want to go to Washington. We want to get close to the president and get his ear. So because right now he's surrounded by some people that are giving him some bad advice, particularly on Second Amendment issues.
So what are you prepared, as a congressman? Right. What are you prepared to do to help get Donald Trump, as well as the rest of Congress, on the right track?
Right. Well, one thing we need to do, we need to have the backbone to stand up when people get off track and be willing to say, no, this isn't the way we're going to do things. This is against the Constitution, or this isn't conservative values. And so, because it seems like when people go to Washington, they have their backbone surgically removed. We want to go and tell Donald Trump, there can never be any compromising on the Second Amendment, even a single inch. And that's what I pledged in my campaign. And we're not going to be afraid to tell Donald Trump that, or anyone else that when it comes to the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I take that very, very seriously. And so when we're talking about the Second Amendment, and there's other people in this race pro-gun, but what they mean by that, and let me just explain this for just one moment, because for decades what we've seen is, Democrats will get into office, they'll advance a pro-gun agenda. and then Republicans will get in and say, no further. I'm going to defend the Second Amendment. But what they mean is we're not going to let them go any further. And then but they don't repeal what came before it. Then Democrats will get back in, advance it, and then Republicans will be like, far enough. But what we actually need to do is go back, repeal all the federal gun laws that already exist, which I'm the only candidate in this race that is proposing that we do that. Also, we need to abolish the BATFE, which has been harassing gun owners across this country for decades. I'm the only candidate in this race that's proposing that we abolish the BATFE. And we need very strong stand your ground laws in all 50 states. And shame on the Idaho legislature for not getting that done. I mean, what in the world's going on? That's why we need to change Boise as well. That's why we're working with 10 or 12 candidates that are running for the state house in Boise to change Boise, because even though it's controlled by Republicans, it's a giant mess. So I know that was a little long-winded, but when it comes to the Second Amendment, I will never compromise.
Okay, so with the bump stock laws that they're trying to impose upon the American people right now, how do you feel about the bump stock laws?
I am completely against the bump stock laws, any restrictions on bump stocks, because I believe you have a constitutional right to own any type of gun that you want, period. No restrictions, no reservations. And you have the right to own any type of ammunition you want, and I believe you have the constitutional right to carry that gun anywhere you want.
So what are you prepared to do to help reassure Idahoans here that those laws are going to be upheld in our state?
Right. Well, personally, because people, I understand, for decades, we're so sick and tired of politicians who they come around in an election season and they say what we want to hear. They say, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-gun, I'm a good conservative. Then they go to Boise or they go to Washington and they betray us over and over again. I've seen it so many times. I'm sick and tired of it. You guys are sick and tired of it. And so people are like, well, Michael, what you're saying sounds great. How do I know that you're not going to do the same thing and betray us? And I think that's a perfectly reasonable question. And so, well, one thing I would do is appeal to my track record over the last 7 years. Everything that I stand for, who I am, what I am, it's public record plastered all over the internet the last 7 years, and people can know that I'm a man of my word. I was raised to say what I do what I say, and keep my word even when it hurts. But then also beyond that, what gives me a chance to be different is that my foundation is Jesus Christ. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and the Word of God tells me, do not lie. So I don't understand these professional politicians, many of which I'm running against, who have flip-flopped, gone back on their word, double-crossed us. In fact, one of my opponents has even said, let me give you a quote from the newspaper, September 11th, 2017, last year. He says he's a good conservative, and yet he bragged at the Coeur d'Alene Press, quote, I have taken some positions and cast some votes that went directly against what most conservatives would want. So he bragged at the Coeur d'Alene Press about how he's betrayed conservatives, not just once, not just twice, but repeatedly from his own mouth. I don't understand professional politicians like that. But I have my pledge that I'm going to go to Washington, I'm going to stand on the floor of the House of Representatives, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to be the squeaky wheel. I'm going to fight as hard as I can for conservative values. And we understand, the whole campaign team, when I go to Washington, I will very rapidly become the most hated member of the House of Representatives. CNN, MSNBC, they're going to absolutely hate me because not only of what we believe, but because I'm a fighter, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to tell it like it is, and they're going to say Michael's absolutely crazy because he's so conservative, he's too radical. But I don't believe it's radical to believe in the U.S. Constitution.
I highly respect the fact that you're very conservative and all this stuff, okay? And you say you're going to fight. So what kind of a fight are you going to bring to them, and what are your plans for what you're going to do? To bring that fight.
And let me give you some general principles, and then let me give you a specific example of what we want to do, something we want to do right away. In general principles, our team, when we go to Washington, we want to be very aggressive about introducing legislation, which usually a new member of Congress doesn't do. Usually a new member of Congress goes, kind of the team player, just sits back and goes along with the flow. but we're going to introduce as much legislation as we can, work with others to move legislation forward, get as much done in the short term as we possibly can. Of course, helping to do whatever we can to implement Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again agenda. We believe in that agenda. We're on Team Trump, and we're going to work hard to help the president get done what he promised the American people to get done, like repealing Obamacare, building the wall, all the things that the Republican Congress is blocking right now. Now, that's in terms of getting things done. Now, part of our role as well is to block things that shouldn't be done. You know, where we're $21 trillion in debt, we cannot continue to do that. So sometimes we have to be like Ron Paul and say no, and stand in the way of the train and say we're not going to allow this to happen when this socialist agenda, the agenda of big governments, are coming down the tracks. We're going to stand right in front of the train and say no. Now, in addition to voting and working on legislation as a member of Congress, one thing that we can do is we can investigate and shine a light and expose things that are going on in government that should not be happening. So that's a huge role of what we're supposed to do as well. And then also using a bully pulpit to advance a true conservative agenda, because there's some things we can do in the short term, but there's other things that are going to take more of a long term. But as a leader, we need to be pointing the way to the things that where eventually we need to go as a nation. And so we are setting forth a very ambitious long-term agenda in terms of where we want to go.
Speaking of our national deficit, what would you do as a congressman to bring to the table to help reduce our national debt? Right.
Well, I believe in a balanced budget, so that's what I'm going to fight for. And when, for example, this recent spending bill, spending agreement, and they're working on some things in Congress today. For example, Paul Ryan has just introduced a new spending plan, which would fully fund Planned Parenthood, no funding for the wall, explode our national debt even more, even though since Barack Obama entered the White House, we've been adding to the national debt at the rate of more than $100 million an hour, every single hour of every single day since Barack Obama entered the White House. So it's utter insanity. We're on a path to national suicide on this issue alone. And so we've got to do something. Now, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, who, by the way, I will not vote for Paul Ryan. I'm the only one in this race that has pledged not to vote for Paul Ryan for Speaker of the House. So if you don't like Paul Ryan's leadership in the House, you know, you want to send someone to Washington that's not going to vote for him. So Paul Ryan, he's proposing this ridiculous spending plan, and you know, all Republicans are supposed to expected to get in line. But I'm going to stand up to Paul Ryan and say no. I'll go on news programs and say no. This is an abomination. We're mortgaging the future. We're stealing the future from our children, our grandchildren, destroying the bright future they were supposed to have, and we cannot do that any longer. So whatever I can do to stop this out of control spending, I'm going to fight it as hard as I possibly can.
Okay. Back on March 8th of this year, we had an organization, it was called Road Relief Organization. And this was on the refugees,
Yes.
resettlement program. What's your thoughts and opinions on this?
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned, and there was a similar gathering in Sandpoint a number of months ago where they're having some people come up from Boise to talk about bringing in refugees, and good conservatives up there, including our campaign, got the word out, and we ended up packing out that place so much that literally they couldn't fit any more people inside. The fire chief was like keeping people out, and it was like 95% people on our side because we're concerned, because we've seen what's happened in Europe, where we've seen where they've had waves of refugees from terrorist hotbeds come in, sexual assaults gone through the roof, violent crime. We've seen the terror attacks in London and Paris, here in Idaho.
Well, we're actually seeing it all across America right now.
Yeah.
We have a group called Muslims of America. Fox News actually recently did a live story on it, and this has to do with all the terrorist organization camps that they're having, where they're actually training people to kill people.
Yes.
And these are your so-called refugees that they've brought into our country, but yet they're making it legal for these guys to set up these kind of as I'm going to call them, terrorist camps. I'm going to call them for what they are.
Yes.
How would you propose before Congress to put a stop to that?
Right. Well, I believe these terrorist camps should be shut down all across America. You know, where they're training, it's military-style training, and is Islamic radicals, and we need to put an end to that. Now, as far as the refugees, we want to introduce legislation and work on legislation in Washington, D.C. that would give local communities the option to say no. For example, if they want to bring, if the federal government wants to bring refugees from terrorist hotbeds in the Middle East and bring them to Sandpoint, we want local communities to have the option to be able to say, no, we're concerned about this. We don't want what happened out in Twin Falls to that little girl to happen here. So local communities to give them the option to say, no, thank you, federal government. We're concerned about the impact this is going to have on our communities. We don't believe these refugees from terrorist hotbeds have been vetted properly. We think they're going to cause problems in our communities. We want to say no and to give them the right to stand up to the federal government and to be able to refuse refugees in their local communities.
But I guess what I'm asking is, how would we put a stop to this on a federal measure?
Right.
How can we put an end to these kind of programs that's allowing these kind of terrorist organizations from entering America? I realize you're saying local. That's all great. I'm all about Idaho. I really am.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, this is on federal level.
Yeah.
This doesn't just concern Idaho. This should concern all of America.
Yeah.
And with you being in Congress, I hope you're working for we the people.
Oh yeah.
Not just Idaho, but also for all of America.
Yeah. Well,
So that's what I'm asking is, what would you propose to Congress, you know, to possibly even put in a vote for putting it into this kind of, as I'm going to call it, BS here on American soil?
right. Well, I don't believe we should be bringing in refugees from terrorist hotbeds, from unvetted refugees, Islamic radicals from terrorist hotbeds at all. And I believe, and I would like to see these radical Islamic organizations that are setting up these training camps around the country. I would like them to be formally identified by the federal government as terrorist organizations, so that we can go and shut down, expel them from this country. Because radical Islam is a massive threat. It's a tyrannical worldview, and their goal is world domination. And we need to stand up to it. We need to fight it, and we should not be putting up with it in the United States of America.
Okay. So while we're on the terrorism list subject,
Right.
how you know much about the Bundy Ranch
Sure.
ordeal?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What's your thoughts and opinions on the Bundy Ranch and what has taken place?
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I was 100% with the Bundys. The federal government handled that so badly. And then, of course, the court case where there was, prosecutorial malfeasance, and somebody needs to be held accountable for that. But yeah, I was 100% with the Bundys throughout the entire process. I was horrified at how the federal government handled that, and we were talking before the program here. We were talking before we went on air. I am proposing that we shut down completely the BLM.
Okay.
The BLM needs to be completely shut down and abolished.
So what would it's great that you're going to propose it, but
Right.
what's your plans for actually being able to do it?
Right. Well, once you get to Congress, it's something, we'll propose it in legislation. We'll work with other legislatures to try to promote that. Now, will we be able to shut down the BLM in the short term? Well, we'll try it, but it may be tough with the current makeup of Congress now. That's why we're promoting dozens of good people around the country to try to get more good conservatives into Congress who believe the same that we do. But beyond that, beyond just shutting them down, we can start reducing their budget. We can start passing restrictions on them. So leading up to completely shutting them down, we can make life more difficult moving in that direction.
I like your response about, we need to hold them accountable.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, at this point in time, the only person being held accountable is Todd Engel. And they're charged, and they've got him on charges right now to where he's asking for a retrial.
Right.
Okay? But yet, even though the Bundys were found innocent in the case, innocent with prejudice
Yes.
by the federal government, the BLM, to have prosecutors involved on the case, okay?
Right.
But yet, here we got an innocent man still sitting in a state penitentiary.
Right.
What would you propose to be able to also Do you agree Todd Engel should be released?
Yes, immediately.
Okay. So what would you propose to help getting the release of Todd Engel?
Right, well, if I could talk with President Trump, like I'm talking with you right now, that's what I would tell him, that he needs to be released. And we'll talk with whoever we can in law enforcement, because, you know, as a member of Congress, you've got a tremendous amount of power and influence, and you can, and which, you know, we're not used to members of Congress using and sticking their neck out for people. So whoever we can talk to, whoever we can lean on, that's what we want to do. Now, the prosecutors, in that case, they're the ones that belong in prison, and we need to restore the rule of law in America. And so I'm not talking just about in that case, but, you know, our young people are looking at the federal level, and they're looking at these politicians who've been committing crimes literally for decades and getting away with it. So I'm the only one in this race that says that Hillary Clinton should go to prison. Have you heard that from anyone else in this race? I'm asking you, those who are watching. Hillary Clinton needs to go to prison. Bill Clinton needs to go to prison. Huma Abedin, James Comey, and the list goes on and on and on, because we need to restore the rule of law in the United States of America. And when we go to Congress, we're going to push as hard as we can to restore the rule of law in this country.
Okay. Well, right now, as we know it, over on the Snake River Ranch, we're about to have another Bundy event, more or less, because it's the same stuff the BLM did, you know, with the Bundys, they're now doing against the ranchers over on the Snake River area. So obviously, the FBI, the BLM, everybody involved hasn't learned a lesson from the first time around, because we're back at deja vu.
Right.
I understand they've got attorneys right now involved, but God knows where that's going to lead.
Yes.
You know, how can we put a stop here in the United States of America from these illegal land grabs?
Right.
How can we enforce this?
Right.
You know.
Well, there's, you know, in the short term, there's short term and long term. But in the short term, you know, we need leaders that are going to stand up and point to the FBI and the BLM and all these out of control agencies and say, this is wrong. And we need people that are going to go to President Trump and say, this is wrong. President Trump, do something. You know, because President Trump, you know, is the top law enforcement official in the country. We need people to go to the Attorney General and say, this is wrong. We need to stop this. We can't be having these kind of situations blow out of control all over the country. You know, whatever we can do in passing legislation in Congress, we want to do. Now, you know, these agencies, this is why I want to abolish the BLM and the BATFE and a whole bunch of other agencies, by the way, because they're out of control, they're harassing people. Now, ultimately, the long-term solution is the federal government should not be in control of or owning these land anyway. There's nowhere in here that says the federal government should own more than 60% of Idaho land, period. It's unconstitutional, but we need leaders that'll go to Washington, that'll stand in positions of power and say it's unconstitutional. There's nothing in here that says the federal government should own or control that land here in Idaho.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have to clarify something that you said.
Yes.
You said there's nothing in there that says that the federal government should own more than 60% of Idaho land.
Right.
So it's okay for them to own 60%.
No.
That's the way you came out. I'm trying to ask you to clarify.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, there's nothing in here that says the federal government should own any land at all.
Thank you.
Right, and that's what the point I was trying to make, so thank you, Sherry. Yeah, the federal government, you know, so we're pushing very hard. In fact, we've got, and we're seeing some movement on this issue in Utah, and we've got an attorney that is representing the state of Utah on these land issues, trying to get land back for the state of Utah. He's on our campaign team. So we're intimately involved, and we're passionate about getting Idaho land back for the people of Idaho.
And who's this gentleman?
Colton, his name's Colton, yes.
Just wanting to verify.
Yeah,
All right.
and he's been on this case for a long time, and his law firm up there in Sandpoint, and they're doing a great job, and we're seeing some movement in this direction in Utah, so we're very excited about that. And so, yeah, we believe Idaho land should be in the hands of the people of Idaho. And if we got back control of our land, we've got so much wealth here under our feet. You know, they call us the gem state for a reason. We've got oil, we've got natural gas, we've got rare earth elements. We could be one of the worldwide hubs and centers of rare earth activity. And you know, and if we had access to all this great wealth under our feet, well, our state budget problems would be gone permanently. We'd be one of the wealthiest states in the entire country. And so ultimately, that's the long-term goal: is to get back to have the federal government not be in control of any of these lands. Period.
Okay. What would you do? How would I ask this? What guarantee do we have that you will not break your word
Yes.
If you were to take office, like so many before you have already done.
Right, and like some of my opponents, and like people are used to seeing politicians in Idaho, seeing politicians all over the country breaking their word. And just as a regular citizen, that greatly frustrated me, because we give them our money, campaign donations, we go out and vote for them, and we watch them betray us over and over again. But once again, I would go back to my answer earlier, that first of all, that I've been a Bible-believing Christian since I was a young child, raised in the Baptist church. I've done more preaching than I have political speaking, and the foundation of my faith in Jesus Christ, and my faith tells me do not lie, and I believe in the Ten Commandments. I take them very seriously, and I follow the Ten Commandments. Now, beyond that, once again, I would say, look back at my record, what I've done over the last 7 years, and where I've kept my word, where I've.
Actually,
Yes.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Yes.
All right, we've heard a lot of candidates say exactly those same words.
Right.
All right. We have heard all the stories coming out of D.C., Boise, and everywhere else. Say you get in there and you are pushing a pro-life bill. And Speaker Ryan comes to you and said, we'll get your pro-life bill through if you support us on a gun ban. If you don't, you'll lose your pro-life bill. What's the priority?
Well, I will.
There's compromise throughout D.C. You know it as well as I do.
Yeah. So I've pledged to the people here in Idaho, I will never compromise on the Second Amendment a single inch. So I will never move on the Second Amendment 1 inch. So in that case, I would say, sorry, Paul Ryan, I'm not moving on the Second Amendment 1 inch.
So you will give up the abortion ban in order to retain the Second Amendment. Is that your priority?
Well, I'd say we don't have to do this, Paul Ryan. We can come back with a
Well, you can
bill.
say that, but that's how D.C. works. We know this.
Right,
We know
right.
this. I mean,
And
we're
there's
not
something-
stupid.
there's
We
some things-
understand how they work.
Right, there's some things you can compromise on. For example, how much we're going to spend to repair the roads this year. That's something you can compromise. Do we spend $1 million? Do we spend $2 million, for example? Those are the things you can compromise on, but there's certain things you can't. So on the Second Amendment, I will never put up with any compromise in the Second Amendment, not even a single inch.
What about pro-life?
Right. On the pro-life, I will never vote in favor of any legislation that even has a single penny in there of funding for Planned Parenthood. And so many politicians have said, oh, I'm pro-life. Then they go to Washington or they go to Boise and they vote for funding for Planned Parenthood over and over again.
That's skating around exactly what I want you to say. Will you not compromise on pro-life issues, period, ever? It's the same as you will not compromise on Second Amendment rights, period, ever.
Right. Well, you don't have to compromise. You don't have to compromise. Right.
Yes or no?
I'm never going to compromise on either of them.
There you go. You were not saying that. There's a lot of people that will say, all right, money didn't go to Planned Parenthood, therefore it's not a compromise.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not a compromise.
Right. And so
in
let
other
me
words,
make it very clear.
what we get a lot of times is we get a lot of politicians and different people that try to skate around the questions.
Right.
And it's not that we're here to attack you.
Oh, yes.
We want.
I need to know how
answers.
strong you are
We
on
want to know where
pro-life.
you truly stand.
Right. On pro-life, let me completely clarify, because from the very beginning, and I've been challenging all the other candidates, I will never, ever, 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 ever vote for any bill or legislation that has funding for Planned Parenthood.
Never?
Even if it's one, never. Even if there's one penny in there in any law, I will never vote, and that's the pledge I've made from the very beginning of the campaign, because we've seen in Washington where the Republicans are control the House and the Senate, they keep voting to fund Planned Parenthood, and it's even in Paul Ryan's new spending bill. I will never vote for that, no matter what they pressure me with, no matter what they
Very
concern me.
good. But will you ever vote for a bill that does not ban abortion, but actually promotes abortion, even if it doesn't give Planned Parenthood money?
No, I will never vote for any bill that promotes abortion in any way, shape, or form. I've been a pro-life activist since I was young. My mother raised me to be a pro-life activist. I've protested outside abortion clinics in the freezing cold. I've been to the March for Life. And not only is it about funding for Planned Parenthood, because that's just the first step to get Planned Parenthood defunded funded. But I'll use the full power of my office to literally go to war with Planned Parenthood until every Planned Parenthood clinic in America is shut down forever. That will be a great day for America. And I will keep fighting till abortion is ended and completely abolished in America, period. As long as I am in office, I will fight abortion in America, period. Because since 1973, 60 million children have been killed in America's abortion mills. And we need people that will go to Washington and fight for the unborn relentlessly, no matter what it takes.
So help me God.
Yes, amen.
Okay. Okay, what, part of our questioning, you know, we've got a president that went into office, okay, as we all know.
Right.
He was supposed to be a very constitutional president.
Right.
This is why we're asking some very direct questions.
Yes.
We've already got a president that swore on the same oath that we swear on.
Yes.
Okay? That you will be swearing on if you take office. So, but this is a president that is already going against our God-given constitutional rights. I don't care if it's a bump stock bill or whatever it is. The second you give an inch to the other side, they're going to want the whole mile.
Oh yeah.
Okay? That's what we want to make sure whoever we have in office, you know, for Idaho,
Right.
I want to make sure you've got a backbone. That's vital to me.
Yes.
As well as this should be vital to every person in Idaho, as well as across all of America.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I want to know that you've got a backbone, that you're not going to go in there and go, well, I'm going to give a little of this to gain all of this.
Right.
Okay? When we swear that oath,
Yes.
we don't give nothing.
You're right.
Okay? That's the oath we take,
Yes.
to uphold the Constitution, so help me God.
Yes.
So when we get that oath, I want to know my next congressman is going to honor that oath without saying, well, but we can bend it a little bit here,
Right.
okay, to make this work over here.
Right.
You know, I want to know that you're not going to be one of those guys. You're going to say there's no bending, there's no flexing here, there's
Right.
no violating the Constitution. I'm here for Idaho. I'm here for the United States of America.
Right.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. And
So-
so I completely agree with you. I was very disappointed when President Trump brought up bump stocks, or he brought up, well, maybe we need to move the age from 18 to 21. No, it is never, ever, ever acceptable to compromise on the Second Amendment, even a single inch, because that goes against this.
Right.
There is no compromising on the Second Amendment ever. And that's why when you interview the other candidates in my race, ask them if the current federal gun laws are constitutional and if they would repeal them on the federal level. If they're committed to repealing the National Firearms Act of 1934, if they're committed to repealing the Gun Control of 1968, because there's a whole lot of infringing of our Second Amendment rights going on right now with the federal laws we have right now. They are not acceptable. They need to be repealed because they're infringing on our Second Amendment rights. So let me
I was
make...
about to ask you that question, but you just answered it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. No, when I say you have a constitutional right to own any type of gun that you want, I'm serious about that. When I say you have the constitutional right to carry that gun wherever you want, I'm serious about that.
If I build a machine gun cannon that will wipe out a city, can I own it?
Yes,
If I buy one, is that okay?
yes,
If I arm it and have it ready on my property at any given minute, is that okay?
yes,
Which is what it states in our Constitution as well.
yes,
All of Idaho, as we know, we're all militia.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, you're militia people.
yes,
So
amen.
the question is, do you uphold the Constitution and do you consider yourself militia?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, I take this very seriously. You know, this is what America's supposed to look like, but what we have in Washington, D.C. and all across the country doesn't look anything like this today. But this is what we need to get back to. And, you know, when I take an oath of office, I consider that to be sacred. I consider that to be holy. And you know what? If I ever break my word, I expect the people to hold me accountable, which we haven't been holding our politicians accountable when they break their word.
So when you say if, so that's a terminology I would never even say.
When?
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No, I would not even say when I break my word.
Right.
I would use the terminology of my word is my word.
Right. My word is my bond. Yeah.
You know?
And that, yes.
So that's one of the things I hear a lot of people saying is if or when.
Right.
Okay? As a congressman, I don't want to hear if and whens.
Right.
Okay? As a congressman, I want to hear what you are going to do as a congressman, and you're going to stick to everything that you are promising the American people.
Yeah, and that's exactly what
And then again, I'm not here to attack you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm just correcting you. I don't want to hear ifs and when.
Right.
My congressman that I want him to be a solid backbone congressman. That's not just going to be a solid backbone, but he's going to also not bend an inch.
Yes,
Okay.
and I totally agree with you 100%. In fact, that's why, if you look at our brochure, that's why, unlike the other campaigns, which just list a couple safe issues, and then they're like, well, we really don't want to talk about anything else, but vote for us because we're a charming guy. Where on our brochures, on our website, we list very specifically who we are, what we believe, what we plan to do, and then we were saying this is what we're going to be about, and we're not going to move off of this because we want to be honest with the people. Wow, that's a switch from a politician. We want to tell them exactly what we believe, exactly what we're going to do, and then we're not going to move from that. And the whole point of running for office is, I couldn't even imagine myself ever being the spineless jellyfish, kind of like we see in DC or even in Boise today. The whole point to run for office is to be different, to be someone that keeps their word, to be someone that's more importantly going to be as importantly, be a fighter, fight for the things that we believe in. Because that's why people were excited about Donald Trump, because they're like, well, he says things differently than I might say them and whatever. But at least he was a fighter, at least he had a backbone, and people really responded to that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. To this day, I still like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't. But my issue I have with Donald Trump right now, and I hope he retracts it.
Yes.
You don't give an inch on our Constitution.
Amen.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you say that you consider yourself a militia member and that you fully stand for the Constitution and militia should belong, right? So does that mean that you will stand by our side, defending people and the Constitution?
Amen.
And the militia, the right to have an organized, well-regulated militia?
Oh yeah, we will stand with you 100% because I don't know if you're super familiar with my work, but that's my audience. Those are my people. The last 7-8 years as I've been writing, that's my core audience. That's who I'm all about. That's the people that have supported me and stood with me in my work for the last 7 or 8 years. It's militia people, it's preppers, it's people that have moved to the Redoubt. Those are our core people, those are our core audience, those are the people I've been fighting for and that have been fighting for me. We're always going to be with you 100%.
I've got a good question regarding that then. Okay?
Yeah.
Under the laws for militias,
Yeah.
it says your state and government's supposed to be funding the militias. The arms and stuff that help contribute. What would you do on a federal level as well as a state level to help see that law is actually enforced?
Yeah.
Because nobody's doing anything about it. Everybody dodges my question on it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know, you as a congressman, do you believe our militias should somewhat be supported as far as in gear, combat gear, things that everyday citizens cannot go out and just purchase?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Now, this is something that I believe is appropriate for the state and local levels to be doing in terms of the funding, because the federal government, we're supposed to have a limited federal government. So I actually believe it would be the role of state and local to do that. But I'm with you 100% on that. We need to support our militias, but in terms of the federal level, there's so much. On the federal level, it's like the 10th Amendment doesn't even exist anymore, which whatever powers are not specifically delegated to the federal government by the Constitution are supposed to be for the states or the people. So the federal government's actually supposed to have a very, very, very limited role. And I take that very seriously, and that's a big part of my mission in going to Washington is to restore that balance. So, we need to shift the balance of power back to state and local. So in this case, it's a state and local thing where I believe the funding should be coming from for the.
I realize it's a state and local issue, but also I understand that militias are on a federal level too because they're nationwide.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd like to see a congressman actually step up and say, hey, I realize this is a state and local issue for you guys.
Yes.
Okay. I realize you're not going to influence our governor down here.
Yes.
But on a federal level, this should be brought up on a federal level.
Sure.
We got Florida that's already banned militias. Okay. We've got other states that are working on banning militias, like California.
Right.
I got a mile a list long.
Yes.
What they're trying to do.
Right,
Once they abolish the Second Amendment, if they have their way, militias are abolished,
right,
okay?
yes,
So that's what I'd like to see on a federal level as well, for someone with a backbone that's gonna take it to President Trump and say, hey, you understand the Second Amendment? You understand anything about militias?
right.
Because we're gonna need them sooner or later.
Okay, I have questions from the chat room for militias.
Yes,
Which
absolutely.
militias are you a part of?
I'm part of the militia, which would be the national militia, but in terms of a specific militia like you're a part of, I'm not a part of a specific one in terms of, being part of a local organization.
So you're a part of the militia according to the Constitution, but
Yes.
not a part of any group militia?
Oh, right.
And you do not attend any militia meetings?
Right.
Or training?
Right,
Okay.
Are you a resident of Idaho?
yes,
So then technically you're Idaho militia,
okay, right,
okay?
yes,
So, and that's in the Constitution.
Yes.
For the state of Idaho.
right,
So I would more than welcome you to come down to one of my meetings. It's held the first Tuesday of every month.
amen,
I'd like to have you down, President, at one of our meetings.
right, that would
To
be
come in,
wonderful,
kind of see what our militias are really all about, to
Yes.
get a good fundamental understanding of it.
yeah.
Lightfoot has chapters all over the state. They have one up in District 1.
Okay, wonderful,
And as well as the 3%ers,
yes,
they're a great organization as well.
Yeah.
I work with the 3%ers as well.
yeah,
And the 3%ers of Idaho have really rejuvenated their organization. They are doing some bang-up, amazing stuff. You should check them out.
yeah, I've seen them online, they're doing a great job online too, so.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, absolutely,
But, I'd also like to see somebody that is very much involved with our militias as well. And when I say involved with our militias, I'm not talking about the guys running around with masks over their face.
oh, yeah,
I'm talking about a legitimate state militia that's here for to do our job.
yeah,
Our job is to protect the citizens and uphold the Constitution. That's
Yes.
our job and our duty.
yes,
And I will defend that duty with my life.
Yep.
So help me God.
amen,
And that's the way I look at my next congressmen and governors. I'm looking at the thing. Are they willing as well to defend the Constitution? So help me God with their life as well,
yes,
if it comes down to it.
yes.
Because,
And,
I mean, it's easy for people to say, well, I've got your six, I'm there.
yeah,
I'm the kind of person that's called show me.
right,
Okay?
yeah,
So that's why I'm direct on a lot of these questions and why I require answers. It's because I want to understand who I'm voting for.
yeah, and that's so important, that's important, and it's important we challenge all of our candidates with these kind of questions, because, a lot of them haven't been very forthcoming, especially in this election season, and so we need to challenge, it's part of the process, we need to vet our candidates very carefully, and we want someone that's gonna be very proud and say, hey, I stand with the militia, I love the militia, I'm gonna defend the militia, however I can, so, because,
So if you were to take Congressman, could I ask you to make a promise to me that you would bring this to President Trump on our militias?
yeah, absolutely,
And I'm not talking just for the state of Idaho. I'm talking about on a federal level.
yes,
To find a way to make these states honor the state constitution,
Like in Florida where they didn't.
yeah,
where, like Florida, where they ban them now.
right, which is a disgrace.
I'd like to ask that you would also bring to his attention why are our militias not being funded to a certain extent. I'm not asking for gold, guys.
Right,
I'm asking for somebody that's gonna stand up for Idahoans,
right,
for people on a federal level as well, to see to it that we have the protection that we're gonna need in our country.
right,
We are gonna be the last line of defense, as I say it, when shit hits the fan.
oh, yeah,
We will be the last line of defense.
yes,
And I'll tell you what, that last line of defense, you better pray to God that last line of defense is well prepared, well trained, and have the guns and whatever it takes to hold off an army.
yes,
Yeah, that's what people need to be concerned about.
oh, yeah,
We're in an ever-changing world, guys. And right now we've got terrorism on U.S. soil
yes,
every day. We're hearing about constant bombings around the country, these so-called mass school shootings, which I question. And I've got a lot of questions about the mass shootings.
yes,
But we can go so much deeper. We don't have the time.
No, yeah, we have to move on to a couple of other
So
subjects.
I'm gonna let some other guys ask you a few questions here today.
Okay.
I appreciate your time myself.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks for answering some questions for me.
Absolutely.
Don't go away, you'll probably want to follow up with some of these. May I jump in, or are you looking to, okay. You're very controversial in a couple of other areas. One is your stance on marijuana. Would you like to explain that stance, and then we can just go from there?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this question because people have had some questions lately. We are the one campaign that is talking the most and aggressively pushing that not only CBD oil, but medicinal marijuana should be legalized. Because, and people had questions about CBD oil recently because I actually went down to Boise and testified against a certain
Yeah, we're going
bill.
to get to that
Okay.
because that is very, very controversial what you did. But go ahead and start with the marijuana, and then we'll escalate it up. How's
Right,
that?
okay, sure. Because there's children that are having seizures all over the state of Idaho, which need this medicine, and some parents are actually giving it to them. For example, when I was down at the hearing in Boise, there were some parents there, they were in tears as they were describing how they've been giving their child CBD oil for a long time, it controlled the seizures, but then the child had to go to the hospital, they couldn't administer the CBD oil, the child had seizures, violent seizures again, and they're like, we're going to keep giving our child CBD oil no matter what and save the life of our child, even if we have to go to prison. They're that passionate about that. And we need to make sure people get the medicine that they need for their children. CBD oil, medicinal marijuana, which can, people are in great pain. I talked to someone in Sandpoint. He was like, Michael, I had tremendous pain. Whatever they gave me, it didn't work. But then I got medicinal marijuana. It helped me. Please, will you fight for this? And I said, yes, I will fight for you on that. We believe in that. We've been running ads on Facebook promoting medicinal marijuana because we believe in it. And then it does, there's research where, the medicinal marijuana, CBD oil, it does wonders with cancer in animals. We need to have testing on and studies with humans on this and all of it. So we believe 100% in CBD oil. We believe 100%.
So why did you testify against it?
Right. Now, during my testimony, I got up there and first thing I said is, we're 100% in favor of CBD oil. We want it so people all over the state can use it. And then at the end of the testimony, I said, I urged the panel there to legalize medicinal marijuana at the first opportunity. Now, why I testified against it is because it was a bad bill. It was written horribly, and this was pointed out by Health Freedom Idaho. They came to me and they said, Michael, look at this. This bill is horrible. It would do all kinds of horrible things. For example, one thing, people that are currently selling CBD oil in the state of Idaho would no longer be able to sell it. And we don't want that. That's horrible. Now, another thing that this bill would have done, it would have required everyone to, of course, to go to the doctor and to get registered and to get their note, which would have actually been a card, which they would have received. But then what it would have done is would have criminalized everyone that didn't want to go to the doctor or didn't bother to go to the doctor and get this card that's already using CBD oil all over the state safely and effectively and legally. No matter what the Attorney General says, all this time they've been using it, thousands of people all over the state, but then all of a sudden if they don't have this note from the doctor, all of a sudden they're criminals. And they're going to go to prison.
Back up. You are not making enough sense to me. I need to get this clarified.
Right.
CBD oil with THC is currently illegal, correct?
We believe under a certain level.
Yes or no? Is it legal?
We believe, the Attorney General says it's not legal, but we believe that under the current laws that exist that it is legal.
Okay. If I currently go and get CBD oil with THC, can they arrest me and prosecute me?
The Attorney General says yes, but
okay,
we believe
the Attorney General is kind of the final say at this point, isn't he?
Well, no, I don't. I believe that he's misinterpreting the law. So ultimately, this should go to ultimately through the court system.
Okay. While I'm sitting in one of these local jails after getting convicted, you
right.
can do your appeals through that court.
Right.
But the fact is I will get arrested, I will get prosecuted, and I will be sitting in one of those jails. Correct?
Right. But right now, no one's getting arrested across the state of Idaho.
It doesn't matter.
CBD oil.
They can't.
Can I help clarify this?
Yes, please, Rochelle. Yes.
No, actually, I would rather he did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Right.
It's just this is his interview. I would rather he
Right.
clarified
Right.
that. Thank you.
And so you are right. We need legislation which will fully legalize it, CBD oil. But
That's
what
correct.
We want
Now
is,
this bill, currently CBD oil without THC is legal.
Thank you.
That
Right.
is legal.
Yes.
CBD with THC is not legal, and that's what this bill would have done. And it took the registration out of it after Representative Moon worked with Health Freedom Idaho. They took the registration out of that.
Sorry, Sherry, it never said that in her bill. I've read it multiple times.
Right.
It never once
No,
said
no,
that.
Health Freedom Idaho
The
was
THC.
pleading.
Now, if you're going to question me on that, I'm going to turn around and say, did you testify on behalf of banning this bill because somebody in Health Freedom Idaho is financially invested in selling CBD oil?
No. I
Is one of your
testified against-
campaign workers financially invested in this issue?
Well, one of our campaign people does sell CBD oil. Yes.
Okay, would they have taken a financial hit on this?
If they had no longer been able to sell CBD oil, yeah, I imagine that it would have been a financial sacrifice.
So one of your campaign workers, you were actually backing them when you were testifying against this
Well,
bill.
that had nothing to do with why I testified against it. I testified against it because it was wrong, and there's Second Amendment implications here too. I don't know if you're even aware, where once they had gotten this card from their doctor that they were approved for CBD oil with THC, they would have had their Second Amendment rights taken away. They would have no longer been able to own guns.
What part of the bill was that? Can you cite it?
Well, because of this registration that would have taken place, where they would have been officially, a user of this federally controlled substance, which then it's been, the federal court decisions have ruled that anyone using the federally controlled substance cannot own guns. So these
Okay,
CBD oil.
but as it is, without the bill that was currently on the table, these kids now cannot get what is helping them over epilepsy. Am I correct?
No, today
They cannot get it.
They are getting it all over the state of Idaho today.
Illegally?
They are using it.
Illegally?
I believe it's legally. I completely and totally disagree.
No,
with the
I am
Attorney General.
talking about, can their parents get arrested? You're skating around this issue. You are not being forthcoming here.
Right.
Is it legal or illegal in the state of Idaho? Can these people get arrested?
Well, like I said, we are completely convinced it's legal. Now, will the Attorney
Okay,
General
I'm
send someone
completely
out?
convinced we shouldn't have a gun law on the books, but we do.
Right.
All right?
I'm
We
saying
may
no-
need to repeal them, but
There's a
we
dif-
have them.
Right, I'm making a distinction between what the law says and what the Attorney General says the law says. Now, the Attorney General says the law says something different than it actually says. So will the Attorney General, according to the Attorney General, can people be arrested today? According to the Attorney General, yes. According to the law, I don't believe so. So that's the distinction I'm making between what the law says, because we have lots of people not following our laws or our Constitution today and doing their own thing, and I believe the Attorney General is doing his own thing. So we need to stand up and say, Attorney General, you're wrong.
Absolutely, we can stand up and
Yeah.
say that while these people are rotting in jail.
Right, which
Correct?
is not happening today,
But it can.
according to the Attorney General.
Well, that is kind of a pretty important point, don't you think?
Oh, I think it is. And so, we're all on the same side here. We want CBD oil fully legalized. We're going to fight for that as hard as we can. And the point we're making in the hearing is, hey, this could be a great bill. We just need to amend it. So Health Freedom Idaho pleaded with Dorothy Moon.
She worked with them. I know she worked with them.
Well, let's just say Health Freedom Idaho was not happy with how she worked with them, and was not happy with the result. And Health Freedom Idaho was there that morning saying, please amend this
they
bill.
also are not the definitive voice. We had 84% of the people in Idaho wanted this.
Oh, well,
now you've
they
got
want
84.
CBD oil. Yes.
You've got 84% of the constituents in this state to answer to. Go right ahead.
Oh yeah, overwhelmingly we want CBD oil, without a doubt. But there's a thing, and when I go to Washington, you don't just throw bad legislation out there just because you want to get something passed. You get it right, and we had an opportunity to get it right. And Dorothy Moon, I don't know what she was thinking, because it's a bad. Afterwards, I talked with people who were there who were supporting the bill. They admitted to me, Michael, it's a bad bill. The supporters, the people who were pushing, they told me that it's a bad bill.
Who? Give me names.
Oh, I have to forget who the specific lobbyist I was talking to and the people that were
Lobbyists.
there.
There you go.
Well, they were testifying in favor of the bill, and they told me afterwards it was a bad bill.
There was a veteran too,
Yeah.
who was in favor.
You're telling me that people went up there that testified in favor of that
The bill,
bill,
and then afterwards told me it
came
was a
back
bad
later
bill.
and said it was a
Told me it
bad
was a
bill.
bad
Why
bill.
would they do that then?
Well, they said, Michael, but we have to rush something through this session. We have to try to get Otter to sign something, and so we know it's bad, but we'll go fix it later. That was their approach. So,
But you can't name these people.
No, I can't recall the name of the particular individual I talked to there that testified that morning, but he did. So ultimately, we're not on different sides, Sherry. We're on the same side. We just wanted the bill to be right because we're passionate about this. We want people to be able to use it without having to go to the doctor and get permission and get a form.
Well, you realize that most of the people that need this already go to doctors.
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Most of the people that need this go to doctors, like the kids with epilepsy, for example.
Right.
They are under doctor's care. Their parents don't just, take care of them at home when it's an issue like epilepsy, correct?
That will, in a case like epilepsy, but there's thousands of others all over the state. And I know there's people watching that don't like to go to doctors.
I don't like to go to a doctor.
Right.
That doesn't mean I won't.
Right.
Well, may I ask something? So maybe approach on this is if you were against that bill, why don't you name some of the reasons that you were against that bill that was inside that bill?
Yeah, let's get specific.
Right. Well, you have to look inside the bill in addition to the broader context where it's a threat to the Second Amendment, where people could have had their guns taken away, which, people try to sound the alarm on that, and then they got criticized. And what was specifically in that bill where they have to go to the doctor, and then they have to get that card, and then they're registered, and then they could have their Second Amendment rights taken away. That's just one element of it. And so, we are very much in favor of getting a bill through, but let's just get it right. That was the whole point. We wanted to get it right. And we said, let's just amend the bill and then get it through, and we can have a great bill. That was our whole point. We just wanted an amendment. And so I was there, and Health Freedom Idaho. And so for people to say, oh, Michael, you and Health Freedom Idaho are against CBD oil, that's absolutely absurd. We're the strongest supporters of it. We just wanted the bill to get it done right. And
I'm going to ask, what part of the Constitution was it violating? I just want to ask.
Oh, the Second Amendment. Because people that use CBD oil should not have their Second Amendment taken away. So that's a violation of the U.S. Constitution.
So it was in the bill to authorize that.
No, but what within the bill, they'd have to register and get that card, which then according to the court decisions, the federal courts, where once you...
But that's a different issue. That's
right.
not this bill.
But we have to look at the bill in context with everything else of where it could be a threat to our Second Amendment rights.
Well, then we can look at it in context with Parkland shooting as well, because was that guy on, some sort of antidepressants? I mean, we can include everything if you really want to.
You're right, and we need...
Before we expand onto that, let's finish this one. And I know we're going to go there.
Right.
But if you're going to include every other bill in the country or the state, that's just not fair to this bill.
No, I think it is fair to the bill because you have to look in the bill in terms of the unintended consequences. We always have to look at unintended consequences and how it relates in the larger ecosystem of the legal world and how it's going to have effect on people's lives. So if people are going to lose their Second Amendment rights, I'm going to fight for that 100% every time. I'm going to defend the Second Amendment however I can, wherever I can. And the fact that the people are saying there's a Second Amendment issue here and for people not to listen and people say, oh, don't worry about it.
That's a second and third issue. I think you were wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Right.
I think you're wrong. I think 84% of the constituents in this state are going to agree with me that you were wrong to come out on this bill because there are way too many kids that have over hour-long seizures or epilepsy that this could have helped.
Right. No, I'm in agreement with the 84%. We got to get the CBD oil to these people as soon as we can. We need to fight for that. We just needed to get the bill right because the bill was horrible. And if people would just look at it and really do the research, I'm a former attorney. This is the kind of thing I did for a living. Other attorneys like John Green looked at it and said, it's horrible. Who's a good patriot, who's running.
So the candidate John Green has come out against Dorothy Moon's bill?
Yes. Well,
I'm sure glad you brought him into this discussion live.
Yeah, he wrote a whole memo of it.
Yeah,
read his memo. Read his memo. Read John Green's memo. The memo he wrote that influenced me.
I have not seen it.
Yeah. And there's so many other good liberty people that we just want the bill to be right.
How are you going to propose to fix the problems?
Right. Well, we just need a clean bill that legalizes CBD oil, period. You don't have to go to a doctor. It's not a threat to our Second Amendment rights. We could have very easily done a great bill if people just would have listened.
Okay.
And I will defend the Second Amendment. If there's a Second Amendment issue, people like all of us should have been said, wait a second, we got to get this right because we don't want a threat to our Second Amendment. Whenever there's a Second Amendment issue, I'm going to stand up and say, hold on a second. Are people trying to grab our guns?
Okay,
no.
We have a comment in the chat room over that issue.
Yeah.
The comment reads, This bill did not affect the Second Amendment at all. That's exactly why the registry was removed. Instead of saying we want to get it right, present something.
Right, and Health Freedom Idaho had amendments there prepared that day, and saying if we just implement these amendments, that we can have a great bill. And so, unfortunately, they just voted to go ahead anyway. They didn't listen to Health Freedom Idaho that day, and that was all that it was. We just wanted a great bill. Now, ultimately, if this bill got blocked in the Senate, of course, anyway. But if
but that was on Hyder. That
right,
wasn't on you.
Which was horrible. Which was horrible.
Yeah, that's the next stage of this thing.
We just wanted a great bill because we love CBD oil. We want people to use it. We want people to use it. As today, thousands of people all over the state of Idaho are using it safely and effectively. We want that to continue the way they're doing it now. We want people to be able to sell it. We want medicinal marijuana to be legalized. And we are very, very strongly supporting it. We're running ads on Facebook for it. So ultimately, we're all on the same side. It's just over this one bill, we had some disagreements, and that's okay. And people in the Liberty community are divided on it. But ultimately, I stand with Health Freedom Idaho and on that, and I think they were right. And I know some people disagree, but that's okay. But ultimately, we need to all come together for the next session and get a great bill, get CBD oil legalized so people can use it without having to go to a doctor, that people can sell it in the state of Idaho, because it's so important that people have CBD oil. I'm passionate about that. It's so important that people have medicinal marijuana. I'm passionate about that. So we're going to fight however we can to get this done. We just want it done right. But ultimately, we're all on the same side on this.
Okay, well, I do want to point out that I do like Health Freedom Idaho. I do respect a lot of their opinions. I don't always agree with them, but I don't always agree with my husband either.
There you go, there you go.
But this is a big issue. It will come
Yes.
back up again. Please be prepared for that, and don't get mad at me because I'm going to hit you hard on it.
Okay, amen. I love
Really?
it.
No.
I love
And Michael, I appreciate you being a trooper here today, answering some pretty hard questions.
Don't we have a couple more?
Oh, we do.
Yeah, good.
One of the things I would like to also ask you right now, prior to the 2016 election,
it. Yes.
how many other times did you vote?
Yeah, well, throughout my life, I've been a Republican. And when Ronald Reagan was my first great political hero when I was very young, and from that day on, I've been a Republican. Never voted for anyone else, only Republicans my entire life. Got involved very early, voted when I was 18, was very involved in promoting Republican candidates as a younger person. Throughout my early adult life. Now, there did come a time when I was like we've talked today, when we were betrayed by Republicans, especially on the federal level. And and at one point I got fed up where I looked at the federal level, and where they were voting to fund Planned Parenthood, they would come to me and say, Michael, I'm pro-life, then they would vote to fund Planned Parenthood. And they would come to, they came to us, and the Tea Party movement especially said, we're going to control federal spending, but then they get control of Congress, and they're, going into debt at the rate of currently over $1 trillion a year. And so many, where the Republicans in Washington were acting like Democrats, and we've seen it in Boise as well, where Republicans are acting like Democrats. So there were certain elections where I said, how do I deal with this? I can't vote for Republicans that are rhinos. In fact, one of our campaign slogans is every rhino has got to go. And if a candidate running for office won't use the term rhino, that means there probably are one. So I said, what do I do? Because these Republicans they betrayed us, so can I vote for them? So I said, there were certain elections where I said, no, you know what? I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to take the principled stand, and I'm going to boycott these Republicans until they start acting like Democrats again. And so I thought I was taking a very, very highly principled stand on the times when I did not vote, because I said these guys have betrayed us, so I'm just not going to vote for them, and I'm going to be part of a boycott until they start acting like true conservatives and Republicans again. Now, later on, the Lord convicted me and said, no, Michael, that's pulling out of the process like so many have done. I've talked to all across Idaho, because of these professional politicians that betray us, like a couple of the guys I'm running against. The Lord convicted me and said, no, Michael, pulling out of the political process is not going to accomplish anything, because these boycotts never work, right? Because they don't listen to us. They say, okay, you sat home, well, good for you. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So I thought I was doing the principled thing by saying, you betrayed us, I'm not going to give you my vote. But the Lord convicted me, said, no, Michael, instead of boycotting, the thing to do is to get involved in the political process. So, for example, 2016, I proudly voted for President Donald Trump, supported him, unlike one of my opponents who on Twitter has said that Donald Trump, quote, can go straight to hell. That's a quote from Twitter from one of my opponents.
And
No,
which opponent is that?
that's Luke Malik.
Okay.
So you didn't vote before 2016? Is that-
No, I voted throughout most of my life, but there were certain elections when I did not vote, because like I said, I thought it was a principled thing to do. If they're going to betray us, if they're going to act like Democrats when they're supposed to be Republicans, well, I thought the principled thing to do was I'm going to withhold my vote from those people until they start acting like true conservatives again. If they're going to fund Planned Parenthood, like the Idaho State Legislature is still doing, and it's a disgrace, like they're doing in Washington, D.C. is a disgrace. I thought the principal thing to do was to say, okay, you're going to betray true conservatives. The principal thing to do is to say, I'm going to withhold my vote from you. And so I thought boycotting the Republicans until they started acting like Republicans again was the principal thing to do. But then later on, the Lord showed me, no,
So
the
if
thing
you
to
don't
do
mind my
is...
asking, did you vote in 2014?
I did not know.
You did not, okay.
Yeah.
What was the previous years that you did vote before 2014? How many years had lapsed before you actually
Right,
voted?
I would have to go back and pull the records to give you all of that, but I can tell you throughout most of my life, I did vote. I've always voted
So would you say
Republican.
within the last 6, 8 years prior to 2014, you had voted?
And like I said,
Back
throughout
in the 90s, was it?
all throughout that, the 80s, 90s, all throughout that
How
time.
about
period.
how about the 2000s?
Yeah, I was voting in there, but there were a couple here in Idaho which I did not vote, but not because I didn't want to vote, because like I said, I wanted to take the principled stand. You know, we have Republicans, and I thought, I'm going to be, you know what, I can't be that's acting like a Democrat. If they're going to keep rolling up all this, they're going to keep...
Other companies, constitution and stuff like that, did
Well, Republican.
restrict?
I have my whole life. I've never voted for anyone else other than a Republican, and that's why it's distressed me when I see I'm far away from our conservative principles, away from this. I was like, what do I? I'm a Republican. I've always voted Republican, but if you've got someone who's completely betraying us, do what?
So you don't like the Constitution Party, you don't like the Green Party, you don't like any
No,
other party?
I like the Constitution Party. My campaign manager ran Constitution.
I know, that's why I was asking the
Right.
question.
Right. But I've always voted Republican. I've never voted anyone else. And even the Republican Party, I've always voted Republican candidate. I've never even considered always been Republican because I
Man, he
believe.
just knocked you right off that pedestal, didn't he?
Okay, well, you had questions there, so I guess I'm gonna get just a little bit harder.
Sure.
Okay, so the years that you chose not to vote,
Right.
okay, which candidates were running at the time that you chose not to vote for?
Right. Well, it would have been all the candidates on the ballot in that particular time
Well,
because
can you give me an example of just a couple of names?
well, Mitt Romney. And you know what? If Mitt Romney was running in a race today, I still would not vote for Mitt Romney. I would write in a candidate, probably in that case, or John McCain. I did not vote for John McCain for president because John McCain is a rhino. John McCain has got to go. Same thing with Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell has got to go.
So what you're saying is at the time, there was nobody worthwhile to even vote for.
Yeah.
That's what you're basically.
What about the other?
Right. Well, in those particular races, then I did not, go and vote in particular races.
Why? I mean,
Right.
you could have voted for the other races without voting for the
You're
first
right.
one.
And looking back, I think I would have. But at the time, I was so frustrated with the Republican Party, especially on the national level, because they're voting to fund Planned Parenthood.
So is it?
No, look, this is
Okay,
my.
but we are also talking about Idaho state candidates,
Right, right.
okay?
So is it fair for me to say this, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, fair for me to say this, that you basically you're back on the Republican Party at that time because of what they were at?
Yes, because also on the federal levels, does anybody out there of the United States Congress, the Republican controlled Congress, voting for Planned Parenthood? In fact, Paul Ryan's latest spending includes Planned Parenthood. On Boise, Republicans voting to fund Planned Parenthood, including two of my Christie vote fund Planned Parenthood in the state budget over again, including people that served there previously, voting on Planned Parenthood over and over again. That's wrong. It's like giving to the Nazis in World War II, because Planned Parenthood is an organization. We killed 60 million children in this country. When are we going to fight?
My last on this topic here, okay? So I understand that you turned back on the party at that time to discuss it, okay? I can kind of relate to that and respect it some, but as a congressman now, you're going to be in representing we the people.
Right.
What if also get discussed, because we've got different views than you of what we want to see it handled as our congressman? Are you going to the people? Is my
Yeah.
as a follow-up question. Okay, are you going to represent us? So heard?
Absolutely.
Or are you so audience and say, well, you?
Or on the, are you going to follow rules because they are. No.
So I don't mean that in a defensive. I just want to know what reassurance are we going to have. I with all the stuff and then turn it back on us as well.
No, not at all. And what we want is we want someone to go to Washington that's going to stand up for the unborn, that's going to vote against funding for Planned Parenthood. That's what we all want. We want someone that's going to go to Washington and stand up for our Second Amendment rights. So I'm going to be there, and we're not going to votes like other people do. We're going to, and I'll tell you what, like, example, how then, because when this election is going to, all the other new members of Congress are going to sit there and they're going to see the presentation and they're going to supposed to be members, how we're supposed to spend our do. Tell us that when a new member of Congress is to raise more than $2,000, the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional, and that's just base level. If you want to be essentially a committee chair, B-level committee, you got to raise more than $800. To be a committee of a committee, you got more than $2 million. And so, how do people raise all the presentation? You'll be told that spend your time, and you'll be told whether Republican or Democrat that you're supposed to doing your job. You're supposed to spend 4 hours a day on the phone raising money, dollars, that money that you're supposed to raise. And you're sending a member of Congress to D.C. What you're really sending is a mid-level telemarketer to the Republican Party, because they make those calls to their offices. By law, there's 2 call centers across the street from the U.S. Capitol, one for Republicans, one for Democrats. And so they go over there and they'll sit there for hour after hour, day after day, and they're very bleak and depressing. 60 minutes, actually got a camera into one of them. And so you sit at your station and you've got a whiteboard up there where you write raised, and they give you a script, and they'll say, for example, if you're married or you have children or what you're interested in, hey, Mr. such and such, and then they'll go through the thing, and the goal is to get as much money out of you on that call as quickly as possibly can, then move on to the next one. So I believe this is morally wrong. We don't want our members of Congress on the phone 4 hours raising money when they should be actually doing what they're supposed to do. This is why Congress can't get anything done. So I pledged when I go, I'm not going to make these telephone calls. I'm not going to participate in that system. I'm not going to be in those call centers 4 hours a day. Instead, we're going to spend 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day actually doing the job that the people of Idaho sent us there to do. And I'm the only candidate in this race that's made this pledge. So I would submit to you that the other candidates in this race who are not willing to make that pledge, who have said, yeah, I'm going to go there and do what Republican leadership tells us to do and sit on the phone for 4 hours a day making phone calls, they're not representing you. They're not standing up for you. They're not going to be there working for you, because they're going to be on the telephone raising money for the people that they're supposed to be raising money for. So, and I think it's a disgrace.
Well, that's our main thing. We don't want a sheep for a leader. We want a person that's gonna fight for the people.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a question over here.
I got a question about that. So what are you going to tell them when they approach you on that and they say those things?
Yeah, that's
What are
what
you
you're going to
gonna
send
tell
with the
them?
backbones. I'm going to tell Paul Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm not going to participate in that system. That's morally wrong. In fact, we're going to introduce legislation which is going to, stop that system, or at least greatly curtail it, whatever we can get through Congress, because there's other members of Congress like U.S. Representative Ken Buck that have stood up to this system, actually written a book in which he talked about this system. So we want to get legislation to stop this from happening, where our members of Congress are on the phone 4 hours a day. So I'm going to look at Paul Ryan right in the eye and I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I know that you're probably going to crack down on me and you know, you know, maybe try to, you know, do some things to put some pressure on me, but I will not bend. I'm not going to betray the people of Idaho, spend 4 hours a day on the telephone raising money when I'm supposed to be representing them.
So here's the thing, though. You know, when you tell them that and they're like, well, check it out, we will not allow any of your things on the floor to be voted for that you're pushing for.
Right.
So are you going to go out on national media and make this public?
I absolutely will.
That's part of this process of healing America, right?
Yes.
Is getting the corruption out in the open so the people know what's going on.
Right.
You need to have enough balls, backbone to stand up and say, you know what?
Thank you, backbone.
You can kiss my ass because now I'm going to take this to a national level. Now that might mean you're going to get death threats.
Right.
That might mean a lot of other things might happen.
Right.
Which, if you're in my area, I would gladly stand, and if you're standing up for the right reasons, I'll stand in front of you.
Yeah, that's why we're going to need your help, because that's exactly
He'll be in
right.
D.C. You won't be there.
Yeah.
I was at the Bonner County
Probably
Central
not
Committee
out
last night, and you know, I said that's why I told them I'm not going there to be a cog in the system. I'm going there to turn the system upside down and restore this. Because, you know, I don't know why in the world anyone would want politics as usual to send someone there who's not going to fight to restore this. So, yeah, I'll go on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News and say, this is what's going on. We've got to change it. We need to get Paul Ryan out as Speaker of the House because the system is corrupt. If we continue on the path that we're on, we're on a path to national suicide. We've got to restore this. We've got to fight for this. And so, yeah, that's why I say, if I go to Congress, I'm going to be very rapidly the most hated member of Congress in America. We understand that. We're going to be right in the middle of the frying pan, and we are going to need some help with protection because people are going to hate us on the left.
So you will call on the militias then, correct?
I very much appreciate your help. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We have time for maybe one more question.
Yes.
We have gone a long time, and we do appreciate you being such a good sport. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, taking a lot of hard questions. But I think we have time for one more, and then we can give you a couple of minutes to wrap it up.
One of my last questions, who are some of your campaign funders out there?
Right.
I see you have maybe a list of 6 or 7 here in Idaho, is that correct?
Oh, you might be just looking at the big contributions, because ultimately we have far more donors than all the other campaigns do, because we're being funded by, while the others are getting cut big checks from PACs, Washington PACs, special interest, lobbyists.
So you are receiving quite.
We're receiving.
You have a lot that's not on this?
Oh, you're probably looking at a large donation, but we're seeing hundreds.
I'm looking at Sunshine Right.
We're going to list the large donation individually. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of donations, which are reported to FEC as well, from all over the country. We've gotten so many.
What amounts are not reported?
Smaller amounts.
What's are we talking about under $50?
Right. I think it's under.
We have some in here under $50.
Okay. Right. So if you have all of them on there, it should be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But I know sometimes when you look it up.
1, 2, 3. We have several pages here.
Right.
Okay.
And so due to my work over the last 7 years, where I have a national platform, national profile, national following all over the country, where of course my readers and followers all over the country are excited about the campaign and are going to donate because we have more of a national profile and national impact and national following than all the other candidates in this race combined. So of course, people from all around the country are going to donate. Of course, tons and tons of people all over Idaho are donating too. In fact, we just held a meeting in Sandpoint last Thursday. And when we got done, we had 5 people put campaign donations on the spot. So people here in Idaho are super enthusiastic.
Question is, Alex Jones with InfoWars, has he been a donator?
No, Alex Jones has not donated.
Or anybody in the InfoWars?
No, but they're super on the program, super excited about what we're trying to do.
I've seen you on the program.
Yeah.
Me? I did real good on there.
Yeah, we love it.
Okay, I have a problem with your statement. Okay, according to your Sunshine, most of your are out of state. You
Right.
only have 5 or 6.
Now,
And
that is
only
not,
maybe 3 according to this list
that's not,
District 1.
yeah, that's not accurate at all, because we've really got huge numbers of
So the
donations.
numbers that you campaign turned in
It
are
was-
not accurate.
No, what we returned into the FEC, you know, because we've had hundreds and hundreds of donations throughout this campaign. So I don't know if you're a reporter there or if you're a report there, but in turn, and the small donation, 25 and whatever, I don't know what you're looking at there. I'd have to look at it myself. But in terms of what we report of
Would
course
you like
we
me to
report.
write this down for you?
Let me take a look.
This URL here that's from the FEC.
Oh, absolutely, because we
website.
reported every single donation to the FEC, of course. And so we've gotten lots and lots of donations from Idaho, but of course there's going to be lots and lots from all over the country, as we've got people from all over the
Well, I
country.
compared myself, the different candidate sunshine reports.
Right,
I could get into Christy Perry's. There was none.
right,
Okay, I have a real problem with that too.
yes,
Okay, Russ Fulcher had the majority from Idaho.
of course.
Okay, money needed too, but the fact is, he came from Idaho.
Well, a lot,
Okay.
he's actually, let me address that, because he's getting money from a PAC, Club for Growth. They're bundling massive out-of-state donors and then handing it over to him. So to say that he's not getting out-of-state money is
He didn't
false.
get any.
Right, he's getting actually, starting in December, if you look at the numbers for December, very large amounts of money, which are being funneled into Club for Growth. Out-of-state money, tremendous amounts of out-of-state money going into Club for Growth. They're bundling it and giving it to his campaign. He's actually getting tremendous amounts of money from out of state, tremendous amounts of money from organizations in Washington, D.C.
And you have a problem with this, right?
No, I have a problem that he's being funded by the D.C. elites. Now, out of state,
I have a
don't have a
problem
problem
with
with
your
it.
being funded the same way he is. You're
No,
being
no,
funded
no,
from
no.
out of state.
But not from the big D.C. political organizations. We're being funded out of state by firefighters, by school teachers, by janitors, by people that believed in my
Do you
work
have- do you
because they
have-
know I stand on
Do you
what I
have
say for.
anything that you can provide us for that?
Yeah, we can
Perhaps.
go back and produce, because all the FEC reports for all the quarters going all the way back throughout our campaign are online.
I see a
so we can-
self-employed entrepreneur on here. I'm
Right.
looking for firefighter. Okay, one of your biggest donors was an entrepreneur here from Texas.
Right, are you talking about Gary Haven?
Well, I wasn't going to name him, but you did.
Right, Gary Haven is a wonderful patriot. People out there are going to know that. Helped produce it was Amerigeddon is the title of the DVD.
Yep.
Wonderful patriot, believes in us. So him and his wife made it to the campaign. Very on our side. People that, and connections to Sandpoint. He's a big supporter of what's going on up here, a big supporter of the prepper movement. And so we're very proud to have him on our side endorsing us. Very excited about
Well,
that.
I'm not seeing a lot of these firefighters that you're talking about.
Right, well, they would donate $25, they would not be down in.
We've got a $10 donation
Okay.
right here.
Right.
We've got $50. We've got $25. We've got a lot of small ones.
Okay,
Those should here.
okay.
Not on here, then I'm going to ask you later why. Okay, because I do have a problem with that.
Right, every single donation has been reported to the FEC, without a doubt, because we made sure of that, and we worked exceedingly hard to do that. Every single donation is reported to the government, and there's hundreds of them.
Well, Redoubt News is very interested in Everybody's Sunshine Report. That
Yes.
is something we've been hot on. We've been helping a website organization, news outlet in Washington called We the Govern expose a lot of campaign finance
Amen.
fraud. I don't know if you followed that at all. We have been, and they're exposing it. They did it. Glenn Moore, and he did an amazing job. We absolutely share his work because it's a very important state of Idaho. We have different laws in the federal system. So I'm still learning, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to, okay, this is what I'm learning.
Right.
So here's my
Okay.
question. Would you be willing to open up your right, and print them off and share with the public who actually is all donating to you? Maybe not their names. Some people want privacy, right?
Right.
But the amount, and if they represent an organization
I want
or
names. I want to know
individual.
who's doing it. I want to know if there's a Texas millionaire out there trying to
Yeah.
take over Idaho.
Absolutely.
But-
Absolutely.
The thing is,
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. We want to be totally
Well,
transparent. And
it comes to this: if you're a man of integrity in your word, and we can trust you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if a public record, if if Paul logo shirts with everybody that was financing them and who they actually worked for,
Right.
there'd be a lot. They'd be getting a lot less votes.
Right.
It's a matter of you say you're honest, say
Yes.
you're not going to lie, you say you're a man of integrity and a man of God.
Yeah.
Then you should have no problem giving a full list of where your donations are coming from, so we know you're not being financed by some corrupt organization.
Oh, and that's the whole thing with the FEC, and that's why we report to the FEC, and that's why it's public record, and that's why it's available for the public, so that people can see, so that people can follow the money, which is very important. And we need to see where the money's coming in and going out. For example, one of my opponents donated to Sean Keogh, which should raise a major red flag for people watching, people out here at one point, and along with a bunch of other troubling candidates. So, it's important for all of us to be totally transparent, and we have been throughout this process. So we're very proud of our donors. We're very proud of that. People who've been following and supporting my work for so many years have been helping the campaign, and so we're very, very excited about that. And we think, as far as where our money is coming from, it's coming from the grassroots. We have a couple of big donors, but if you look at the reports for our opponents, man, coming from some sketchy people, coming from people like Tom Luna donating to campaigns, the father of Common Core in Idaho.
But that's also within Idaho. You, on the other
Right.
hand, I have to go back and research people I've never heard of because they don't live in Idaho. And most are out of Idaho. There's the problem. You're going to have to sit down with Mayor Christian Kent later and explain to me who these people are.
Right.
Honestly,
Right.
I want to know who they are.
And being a national platform, you're going to get donations from all around the country.
I expect that, but I
Right.
do not expect 99% of them to be out of.
Not 99%.
Well, okay, I'm sorry, but there's like 7 pages here, and I think 6 are from Idaho. 6 people, something
Well,
like that.
it-
It is a
right after
very,
this, we'll
very
take a
minute
look
amount.
at this, but we are without a doubt getting donations in from all over the country, without a doubt.
Absolutely, I do expect that,
Yeah.
but again, I would rather see more from Idaho.
Okay. And
Honestly.
as we move forward,
I think you can understand
Oh,
that
yeah.
position.
And this quarter, we are going to see definitely a higher percentage from Idaho. Like just the other night, we got 5 donations, at the meeting the other night. And so, this report is going to be, it's, going to be out in mid-April. And so we are going to see a high percentage, without a doubt, from Idaho this quarter, as we've, done a whole lot more campaigning in the state, and people have gotten more excited on the local level.
Well, Michael, I want to say I do appreciate you answering these questions today.
Yes.
Kind of put you through the ringer.
I
and I do
appreciate you.
apologize for
I
that.
I appreciate you allowing some very direct, hard questions.
Yeah.
Again, as the captain of the militia myself,
Right.
I have a responsibility as well for our state, our people.
Right.
I want to make sure that whoever we have in office,
Right.
we discuss that, has a backbone.
Right.
I want to make sure that they are not going to become another corrupt politician out there
Yes.
in office,
Yeah.
full of promises, and I'm going to call them fairy tale dreams, but nothing ever comes true.
Yes.
So that's why I ask such hard questions. I ask this with every candidate I do an interview.
Right.
I like to get to the bottom of things to where in the end when I make my vote, I know my vote is for the right guy.
Yes.
Not somebody that's just going to dodge my questions.
Yes.
You have answered a lot of questions to where once we got to the main point, you did still provide answers.
Right.
I appreciate that out of you.
Right.
So I hope everybody here
I want to thank you very much.
got all their
I
questions.
really appreciate it.
Anybody else
taking
here have a
time
question
with us,
they'd like
and
to
I hope we
ask?
helped you as well as you helping us.
I got one more question, actually.
Yes, sir.
So I think Congress is overpaid by
Yes.
far. Now, I'm not saying that, they should live at poverty level. They're doing a hard job. It takes a
Right.
lot of time. If they're doing their job correctly, which most of them do not anymore.
Yeah.
So if a bill comes onto the floor where they have to take a $150,000 a year pay cut, are you going to support that?
Yes,
To better
yes.
the country and the finances in the country.
I will, yes. And in addition, all the rules that apply to the rest of us should also apply to Congress. If Obamacare is good for us, it should also apply to Congress. If, they shouldn't have their own special retirement, everything else, everything's set up for them. And so that's part of cleaning up the corruption in Washington and draining the swamp, and that's something we've been talking about that none of the other candidates in this campaign have been talking about. And so, and like I said, thank you for vetting me, thank you for vetting the candidates. What I've been concerned about in this election is, candidates like me have been getting proper vetting. Candidates like Russ Fulcher have not. You guys need to be hard on Russ Fulcher. There are some things there. That's as much as I'm going to say. Do your digging. Because if the truth comes out about Russ Fulcher, everyone's going to abandon him. Everybody. That's all I'm going to say for now. Everybody, every voter watching is going to abandon Russ Fulcher if the truth about Russ Fulcher fully comes out. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, we're going to end our live stream at this point.
Yeah.
We want to thank candidate Michael Snyder, candidate for the 1st Congressional District in Idaho, for joining Redoubt News
Thank you.
with Captain Alexander
Thank you.
and Sherry DeBali. Redoubt News, RedoubtNews.com. This video has gone up live on YouTube, and it will be shared all over on many different platforms as we have expanded out to probably a dozen different social media platforms. So you may get asked a few questions, but we will give you a link on this and let you view it later. But we do thank you very much for you taking the time with us. We have taken an awful lot of your time, but we're done now. We're going to let you go have some lunch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You guys up for lunch, Sherry?
Oh, yeah.